Hello and welcome to the Womb-Centered Healing Podcast. I'm Sama Morningstar and I have Neela here with me. Thank you so much for joining us, Neela. And I'm excited to interview you because you're a doula, right, in India. Where do you live in India?
I am from the southern part of India, in a state called Tamil Nadu, and I'm from a place called Chennai. Um, it's in the southernmost part of India, basically.
Okay, so great. So please introduce yourself a bit more and share with us what womb-centered healing means to you. I'm imagining you're going to share about your doula work, but yeah, maybe there's some more about that I'd love to hear about.
Right. So I am a doula based out of India. I did my training with an organization called Doula in New York in 2017, in June 2017. And I got into the doula work because I happened to support a couple of my friends and one of my cousins during her labor. And wanted to specialize. So I have a background of working with corporate companies, and I was mainly into support roles. I was into administrative roles and secretarial roles. I just wanted to get out of the corporate world and do something meaningful, get out of the rat race, basically. Mm-hmm. So when I supported these women during their birth, I just heard a calling, and I thought, okay, this is where I should be. And I was totally fascinated by the whole idea of birth and supporting other women during that special time of their life. Mm-hmm. So I started doing a little bit of research, and ProDoula was an organization that instantly got back to me with the details that I required. We got on a Skype call with Randy Patterson, and we just decided, and I got on the flight and went to New York. Wow. So it was that was a 26-hour flight, and after that the training was for as a labor doula, as a birth doula, as well as a postpartum and infant care doula. So I did both these trainings with her, and I came back to India, and I started practicing. And I also did a childbirth education course with ProDoula itself. So I am a certified childbirth educator as well. Along with all this, I also am a Tantra training specialist for women. So I do sexual wellness counseling for women in India. And also I have counseling sessions with couples who are struggling to have babies, try to talk to them and get them to conceive in a natural way without the influence of drugs and, to stay with nature as much as possible. So this is basically what I do.
Wow.
I've got an opportunity to support a number of clients here in Chennai, even though the doula business or being a doula is not very popular in India. I think it's just getting there right now. The word's just spreading about what a doula does and how important it is to have a doula during birth, and how nice it would be to have someone support you exclusively during birth, and share such experiences. So, I mean, that's a little bit about me here.
Beautiful. So are you participating in some of this education of the public about the benefits of having a doula during childbirth? And I imagine postpartum, well, we'll save the postpartum question till after you share about this. In what ways do you reach out to your community and share, and what do you share with people that seems to be where you see the light go on inside of them and they say, yes, show me how to sign up?
Okay. So as a doula, I introduced myself on my, Facebook page. So that's as much publicity I have. I'm actually working on my website right now. But it's just by word of mouth that the information about my doula work spreads. If I support a client and the client likes me, she talks about me to another friend of hers, and they get to interview me, and then they get me on board. So that's basically what I've been doing. And also, as far as childbirth education is concerned, again, by word of mouth, when people call me, I have individual sessions with them. I have individual counseling sessions if they're trying to get pregnant, if they're trying to have a baby, they've already conceived and they want to know childbirth education, then I do that with them. So this is basically, but yeah, this is basically what I do with people, and I do not publicize the work that I do. So pretty much there's zero publicity from my side that I work on. There's no advertising that goes on. It's just purely by word of mouth. But recently we have revived a group called the Chennai Birth Network. And it comprises of birth workers, right from nutritionists and lactation counselors to doulas and childbirth educators to pelvic floor specialists. We've got everyone lined up in the Chennai Birth Network. And we conduct monthly meetings to spread awareness to the public about the work that we do, and also awareness about the birth world, trying to eliminate the fear around birth that has been there for quite a while.
Beautiful.
So this is what, yeah.
So you have all of those practitioners in your area. Do you live, I mean, is where you live, is it a big city or is it a smaller town?
It is a big city. Yeah, it is a big city. It is a big city, and we've got all these practitioners, plenty of them. In the whole of the country, if you look at doulas, we have about 20, I think.
In all of India?
Yeah. In all of India, there are just about 20 or so who are practicing actively.
Wow. And so do you also, I mean, I imagine you have midwives, although I didn't hear you say midwives in that list of practitioners.
Midwives, there are a few midwives, but then midwifery-based, birth centers are not that popular in India, although we have a couple of them in India. One is in a place called Cochin in Kerala. It's called Birth Village. And then there are another couple of places in a place called Hyderabad. One is called the Sanctum, which is run by a midwife. And there's another one that's called Fernandez Hospital, which is a collaborative approach where they have midwives as well as obstetricians working together. So the government of India has just begun to kind of realize the importance of having midwives around birth. And, the training that we have currently for midwives is totally insufficient, because the nurses who get trained are the ones who get trained to be midwives also, and the training that's provided to them is just for about 3 months or 4 months of training in the midwifery section.
Wow.
So that's that's what we're working on right now, to get the collaborative approach into India. So once that comes, I think birth will be better.
Now, I'm curious if you know about the history of midwives in India, if you've done any research or learned about it, because I'm imagining that there are lay midwives who haven't been trained in the medical profession, that aren't recognized by the government, but that are out there helping women birth, and that may have a system of apprenticeship between lay midwives that just aren't necessarily recognized, and they're the keepers of all of this information that I imagine if there was, or I'm wondering if there's a process of integration of saying, okay, lay midwives, come train our nurses, right? Because they probably have passed down this information, and even though it's not recognized by the government, it needs to be, because they've been keeping that information going for probably since the beginning of time. It's a very old tradition.
Yeah, you know it, but I don't think the government seems to realize the importance of having midwives around birth and having the traditional midwives around, because recently we lost one of the midwives who never charged a penny for a birth, and she had seen about 15,000 births in her entire life. She was around 96 or 97 years old when she passed away recently. and she had helped deliver about 15,000 babies, birth about 15,000 babies. So, but then this is not a recognized field, and also we do not have home births happening here. We don't have home birth midwives. Um, Recent times they have pronounced having home births as illegal. So, it's only institutional births that we have right now. So, if at all by
Well,
accident a baby is born at home because of precipitous labor, then that's probably, they immediately are rushed to the hospital to take care of the rest of the duties. But we do not have home births, and home births are illegal here in India.
where did this woman who supported 15,000 births, where did all of her births take place?
Yeah, those took place in places where there were absolutely no hospitals, places where, the healthcare providers could not reach into the rural areas of India. And, you know, she used to practice probably before this ban came into existence. So it's only in recent times that they have banned, home births.
So but there are still plenty of places in India that don't have readily available hospital birth
True.
services, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
where are those people supposed to give birth?
Yeah. So if
They just have to leave their home, go out on the street and give birth?
so
Go
in
out
that
to
case,
the
they
woods.
have there are some midwives who support them during that period of time, but mostly it's just dying. The traditional midwifery is actually we having just a handful of these midwives and dyes who are operational.
Mm. Well, I can imagine that if we went and on a trip to a small town area where there wasn't a big hospital and we started asking around, we might get a bit different of a story than that. You know what I
That
mean?
is true. Yeah, that is possible. And also, I'll tell you what happened. About a week ago, there was this lady who was like full blown pregnant, and who went to chop wood into the woods, and she went alone. And when she came back, she carried her pile of wood as well as her baby that was delivered all by herself, alone, and she came back, into town. So, these things also happen. So there's absolutely unassisted birth that also take place, and it's a very casual, common thing that has happened, and it wasn't, something great or something that's really intriguing for others. But then for us from the urban world, from the birth world, and it looked really nice. I mean, it was a natural physiological process that was meant to happen that way, that happened that way. So we felt kind of nice. But the person who birthed the baby, I think she had a totally different experience, because she just did a very natural thing on her own, and she didn't feel special or anything about it.
Yeah, and I think that probably happens a lot for a lot of people, especially probably in India and other countries where there's a lot of rural places that
Right.
are not supported by modern medical facilities at all.
Correct.
So I think that's probably, I mean, if we looked at the majority of the population in India, where is it?
The rural population is the majority, but
Yeah.
right now they have primary health centers which are available, and those health centers have got basic nurses who provide their
Great.
services, but they're not trained midwives, and
Yeah.
there are no doctors who are present in every rural health center. So
And
it's
so
basically
the
a
rural people are legally now required to go there instead of sticking with
yes,
their local home birth lay midwife who has the training of thousands of midwives before her under her belt. That makes a lot of
yes.
sense. I mean, I don't mean to be critical of this, but I'm saying,
No,
we
but
have
that's the
this.
reality here.
Yeah, that's the reality. Now it's illegal for them to see their midwife instead of going to these untrained nurses and doctors that don't know really how to support birth. So I'm hoping that that there are, with the education that you're providing about doulas and all of that, and maybe there'll be some doula midwifery promoting organizations that will develop to meet that need. because, you know, to educate these people in rural areas that something is wrong or illegal about home birth and midwifery, when really the medical system is inadequate to serve their needs, is a crime, I feel. And I don't know, I mean, because that's like the US going into third world countries and telling, you know, mothers that baby formula is better than breast milk, you know?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So that's just my 2 cents in about that. I'm pretty appalled at that law, that home birth.
Yeah.
And I can understand the impetus of, let's, you know, there may be some benefits of if the medical system was providing well-developed prenatal, postpartum care and well-developed maternity care, that would be one thing, and that there was more available in the medical system than there is in the lay midwifery. But to say that lay midwifery and home births is illegal when that's not developed fully is
that's the when we all have our blood boiling moments.
Yeah, that's a blood boiling moment right there. All right, so we're gonna here and boil our blood a little bit, but that blood boiling gets us motivated as you know, activists, as
yes, that's true. We all have that activist in us now.
Yes,
that you know, that's kind of desperate in providing the awareness to the public as to what is possible, what is normal in birth and what is not. So I mean, it's a very fulfilling job. It really doesn't pay much, though.
No. Yeah. Well, especially because, you know, the word doula comes from Greek, and it originally meant a female slave, like the slave of the woman, right? So it started out, and so I wondered about that, like, how can we get the doulas out of this, you know, poverty cycle of not being paid anything, right? And most doulas want to serve, especially people who don't have money to pay, right? Because they're the ones usually that need a lot of support. And of course, people who do have money to pay need the support as well, don't get me wrong. But you know, most doulas see all these populations of women that have nothing and no support and want to go and support them birthing their babies as well. And midwives do too. Yeah, because we're taking on a whole thing. We're sitting here, our blood is going bloop, 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 bloop. So tell me, I would love to hear more about, if we want to really stir this pot of boiling blood, the postpartum work as well. And I mean, each one of these, the birth preparation, we could start with fertility awareness too, like, you know, and menstrual awareness of young women. I know I've interviewed another woman who's out there de-shaming menstruation through work in various schools and institutions and in prisons in India. She's, you might know her, Dr. Sneha Rue. Do you know her?
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, I should hook the two of you up, because she's going out and with government funding in some cases, because there's a whole thing about menstrual hygiene where the government's having people go in and teach schoolgirls how to, you know, use pads and things like that. But she goes in and has them do womb connecting meditations with government funding. So don't tell anyone I told you.
I definitely like to connect with her. I'm not sure.
And then you need to talk to her. And then she goes to colleges and talks with the feminist students and gets them doing invisible theater, where they go out into large cities in public with a stain on their dress.
Oh, that's nice.
She has
I haven't heard of that. I haven't seen one.
Yeah, she
Though
has an organization called, what's the goddess name? Maybe it's a goddess name, or maybe it's a
Shakti.
term. What?
Shakti?
Not Shakti. It's the name, it's a term for a woman who stains things. She who stains. Orankeli or Orankalini or something like that. That's the name of her organization. And it's reclaiming this power of menstruation to make a mark, right? And so she goes out and does these things. Anyway, so there's all this. I mean, that's the beginning, right, of childbirth education, is even to have any kind of awareness around fertility and menstruation is the very beginning to start.
Yes.
And then you're getting into childbirth education where people don't even know anything about it or what to expect or anything like that. And they don't even know they need childbirth education, right?
They don't know. They have no clue. They have no clue. They, the moment they get into the care of the care providers, who are the obstetricians basically, who play God, by the way.
By the way.
They blind, yeah. So, they just blindly listen and oblige to whatever the obstetrician says. They don't ask questions. And if they ask questions, I think there is a certain kind of offense the obstetrician takes also. I wouldn't blame all of them, but there are some of them who do not like being questioned. And if you know a little too much, they are a little intimidated. So I'm not sure if I can even say these things out loud here, because it's definitely, if there are some obstetricians who are going to listen to this podcast, they'd probably not want me around their labor rooms.
Well, and I know that this is a challenge for doulas everywhere, really, because we are asserting that the mother's emotional and physical well-being is really important, and that there are more aspects to that than obstetricians, gynecologists, address in their methods. Right. And that those aspects are really important for birth outcome. And this is all true based on evidence-based research that mothers who have doulas have hugely better birth outcome statistics than mothers who don't have doulas. And yet doctors everywhere, I think there's a course in arrogance, like doctorly authoritarian arrogance, that's a required course in medical school that's probably goes on for longer than the birthing course, right?
All that being said, I also feel sorry for the obstetricians, because I think they practice what they're being taught.
Yes.
And I think that And I think that at some level, the natural birthing and the obstetrician stepping in only at the time of a need, when there is an emergency, has been forgotten.
Yes.
And, right from episiotomy to, any other intervention, it's just, augmentation of labor, even though labor progresses normally. So everything, I think they're going by the book here, which is not really required.
Yeah.
So I feel kind of sorry for them too, because they need to get into this collaborative approach and kind of get to learn from the midwives, and the midwives get to learn from the obstetricians to step in case of emergency. So it's a 50-50 thing. I really hope and pray that, someday people get to realize the reality reality in this birth world.
Yeah, and I know that as doulas anywhere, really any good doula training, the teachers, my teachers taught me to come in as an ally, because if I come in with all those blood boiling, you arrogant doctor attitudes, right? Even though I might really be feeling that, and I might have good.
Right. So I need an activist behind.
Yeah, right.
I have to leave my activist self at home, right, and then go as an ally, like you say. So I'm going to support this woman with whatever she wants in her journey of birth. So I'm not going to advocate for her. I'm just going to be supportive of all her decisions. That's about it.
Uh-huh. Well, you know, and I've found, and I don't have a ton of doula experience, but I have attended a few births, and I found that sometimes advocating for her meant, like in one birth I was at, the father was getting really fierce at protecting, and that was partly because he had been trained by the midwife. They both had come to the midwifery preparation courses, and they had me, you know, they had this awesome team, and the nurses kept changing shifts and coming in and inserting themselves where they were not wanted and weren't needed, and were just assuming. And so he like got fierce, and he had all this emotional charge to it, you know. and so I was able to help by then soothing the ruffled feathers of the nurse afterwards, after that interaction.
Yeah, we have to do that a lot of times. Yeah. The fathers are the ones who get most worked up. I've seen that too. And they get especially irritated when the same lactation person is not available postpartum.
Right.
Okay, she was able to latch my baby well. How come you're not able to do it? Call her. And then that nurse has probably gone home already.
Right. Because everybody's tired, they're concerned the baby's not going to get enough milk, and everybody's exhausted from the whole birth, and so but there, you know, but there might be other opportunities for advocacy too, especially with the mom who doesn't have a husband that's like, you know, or the husband's passed out on the couch, right? Or, you know, and so I can see that. You haven't seen the husband passed out on the couch. But there may be other times when that advocate may need to step in at times, and that it's good to, I feel, to have sort of a non-activist approach to bridge building advocacy, where you can, you know, step in if the mom or the dad or the other, you know, family members are struggling with getting their needs met and what they're asking for. Then you can come with a professional demeanor to the interaction potentially, and you know, make the communication more clear, or smooth the ruffled feathers some more, and say, I think she just kind of needs some space, or, you know, whatever it is that right, what she's asking for, make it a little easier, because, and so that's a role of doulas. It's almost like being sometimes a communications facilitator or something like that, you know.
We just connect the dotted line.
There you go, connect the dotted line. Beautiful. And so you brought us right to the postpartum doula work, and I would love to hear about if you're aware of any traditional cultural postpartum practices that might still be happening in various cultural sections of Indian society there. And, you know, a lot of times those cultural practices are sort of painted over with this patriarchal idea that something's dirty or unclean about the woman. And I'm wondering if there's been any kind of effort to extract what's healthy for women postpartum from those practices and sort of brush off the woman's dirty and unclean part of it.
Right. So I just like to start off by saying that postpartum support, as far as India is concerned, for a doula is out of scope, I would say, because we have such a great system over here which is already in place. The family is absolutely there. The support system is already present. Most of the times it's the mother or the mother-in-law who steps in. Usually the woman goes to her mother's house to deliver the baby. So it's from the mother's house that she goes to the hospital, and then from the hospital, after the birth of the baby, she brings the baby back home to her mom's place. and she stays there anywhere between 40 days and 6 months with her mother. Being,
Wow.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. So, the 6 weeks that we need as, postnatal care
Uh-huh.
is also given. And, she can choose to stay for as long as 6 months in her mother's place. I mean, until she is absolutely sure that she's going to be able to handle the baby, either when she goes back to her in-laws' place or her own place. So she just builds the kind of confidence in her when she goes back. And also, postpartum, you wanted to know if there are any traditional doula types who we have over here in India. We have someone called as a japa. These people are basically from the eastern part of India or from the southern part from Kerala. And those are the ones who give massages and give the baby a bath, give the mother a massage, and take care of them on a daily basis.
Mm.
So these japas are available, and also in case it's a nuclear family and there's not much of a family support, that's when a doula steps in, which is maybe about 1% of the population.
I see.
Yeah,
So what
that kind of.
do you mostly just provide education then, or do you sometimes step in when people don't have their whole family?
When they have their own family, and when sometimes they feel that they need an extra hand,
Uh-huh.
that's when I come in.
Uh-huh.
And also when there are oftentimes there are mothers or in-laws who don't get along with the birthing mother, and
Sure.
yeah, that's when they want the stress taken off their backs,
Right.
maybe at least during the first 10 days of recovery. So that's when a postpartum doula comes in. But
I
otherwise,
see.
they pretty much the support system is kind of fixed, and they're on their own.
Right. And so I wonder, are there any special foods? I mean, I know that the Ayurvedic approach to postpartum care is quite developed, where there's a whole system of feeding and nurturing the mother. And do all families, probably not all families, have all that knowledge or access to that? Not all grandmas know are Ayurvedic nutrition specialists, but they might
All
be.
grandmas,
All grandmas do?
yeah, all grandmas do. So they might not be Ayurvedic, but they definitely know what the traditional food that has to be given to a new mother
Uh-huh.
would be. So, right from roasting garlic, and I mean, that there's a baby in the house right from about a mile away. So they're
I love it. Okay, because you can smell all the spices. It's mostly
yeah,
roasting garlic.
yeah, it's garlic and a lot of freshly cooked food that we have. I found it surprising because in America, when I visited America, I saw a lot of families packing food and freezing it and then just reheating it and having it. That's unheard of over here.
Mm-hmm.
We make fresh food, uh, fresh meal for every, fresh food is prepared for every meal. Breakfast is fresh, again lunch is fresh, and dinner is fresh. So it's a fresh meal that's been prepared every single time, and we don't put food in the fridge as much as you all do. And we have freshly cooked food, and we don't use coconuts while for the new mother, because we feel that it might cause indigestion for the infant. So we don't give her
Coconuts.
coconut. Yeah, coconut. And then we try to incorporate a lot of greens and pepper in her food. Incorporate a lot of garlic and fenugreek seeds, so that she lactates a lot. Yeah. So yeah, we do all those natural things that's possible. We our dependency on pills is, I would say, is very minimum.
Beautiful. I know that. I know all the spices. I mean, as an herbalist, I've got all the spices that you would normally cook with in my herbal cabinet, right? Because and I make herbal supplements out of a lot of those, because I just don't cook with them as much as I would say if I grew up in India, right? I probably have them in every meal, but I don't necessarily do that. Although now my husband puts turmeric powder in all of his teas and adds them to mine now too. But
Oh, that's good. You're
yeah,
eliminating a good chance of, you're eliminating cancer
yeah,
from your life. Yeah.
there you go. And so you're saying though that most grandmothers, right? So you've got the birthing mom, and then her mom is gonna, and her household is gonna be cooking fresh meals every day for that mom, for the new mom, with that included, with all the birth. It's just common knowledge there.
Yes,
with most families.
Yeah.
And so you find that. And do you check that? Do you make sure, like when you have a birthing mom who has her baby, do you like, as a postpartum doula, do you ask them, is your mom going to be feeding, or you just assume that that's true?
That's the sole reason of existence of the mom there in the house. So it's a given. If the mother's around, the new mother is going to be fed well.
I see.
And be taken care of really well.
Yeah.
She'll get her rest.
It's just intrinsic in the culture. And are there any sections of culture there in India where that has been lost, or where it wasn't developed as much?
I think the urban culture is kind of trying to copy what's going on in the West. So, when there are, I mean, not during birth, but at least after 40 days, maybe there are people who struggle with, setting up the house and getting the baby back home and, setting things in order. But the first 40 days are definitely taken care of.
Even with the people that are trying to be more like the West, they still do their 40-day with their mother. Yeah,
or they take help, or they get a help of a japa. They take help of a nurse who is with the baby. So it's basically the elite population who probably who can afford help. They're the ones who will, hire help.
Right, but everybody else is still and it's intrinsic. Having now, I know that there's a quite a large, very poor population. But that's how the really super poor population really survives, is by relying on each other, right? So it must be there as well.
That's true. I think the poor population are the ones who co-depend on each other, and there's a lot of things that they get done. So they're very friendly. The neighborhood pitches in with whatever help they can do. And there's a lot of stress with regard to what goes on if there's a sibling in the house already, the mother has taken the sibling and the newborn child. If she does not have a support system, then that's when the neighborhood pitches in, and it's a beautiful network that they have and an arrangement that they have. I mean, it's not pre-planned or anything. People just bring in food and make sure that she's been taken care of.
And it sounds
that happens too.
It's just intrinsic in the culture to take care of each other. What a difference to what it's like here. Go tell those people they don't want to become like the West. It's not as pretty as it looks like on television. I mean,
I've been telling them how lucky we are to be Indians, to be born as an Indian, to be born in India with such a great support system. That's why I see that postpartum depression rates are also not so intriguing in India, although it's there, and then we don't have much help with regard to postpartum depression, and for mental health we don't have that much of awareness in India, that I must admit. But as much as there's not much help needed as well.
Right, the statistics are probably lower because of this intrinsic cultural support and family support of birthing mothers. That's where mental illness starts, is when mothers are not supported. Now, even though that's the case, there's also, just like everywhere else in the world, and I'd love to hear you talk about that, this idea that somehow women are less than, and that's changing as we're standing up and saying, no, that's not true. But that's all over the world that we're having to point to that and say, this isn't true. Let's stop doing this, right? So that even in that system, you know, the mother who's taking care of the new mom could still be indoctrinating or expressing those less than ideas and cultural restrictions on her, and that could be a source of mental illness for many women,
Yes,
that we just don't even recognize. What's that?
Yeah, and this is the last generation which is going to get help. So, you know, we have, my grandmother had 10 children. My mom had just 2. I have just 1. So this is the end of this era, I would say. And, you know, we are pretty much getting to, you know, where you all are right now in the West. So that is an alarming state of affairs that's happening over here right now, because this will be the last generation which will look up to their parents for help. And after that, they're all going to be on their own. So, you know, maybe 10 years or even 15 years down the lane, the scenario itself is going to be extremely different from what we have discussed today.
Mm-hmm. So you're really on the forefront of what will be eventually a big need for postpartum. And so it might have to go through a phase where people think we don't need that, and then they realize how debilitated and burnt out they become after not having it, and all the problems that come from it, you know. I mean, I treated I'm a massage therapist, and I massage women all the time that come in with various ailments and I ask them, have you had any children? Yes, I've had 2. What was your postpartum care like? Oh, I didn't know I needed postpartum care. All right, well, you can go and do it retroactively because your body has not put itself back together. I'm curious, you do have these postpartum massage practitioners. Do they do anything like the bone closing ceremony of the Mexican tradition with the rebozos? Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar with the rebozo techniques, but then I don't see any of that being practiced here. Okay. So we don't have anything like that. It's all done just with the hands. Okay. So there's no equipment that's being used at all. Okay. So it's just the hand that massages. You know, if the baby's head is a little disproportionate, it's just the massaging that fixes the shape of the head and things like that. So it's basically just that. No other equipment.
And the mother's body too, because there's a sense of wanting to squeeze the body back together after it opened up so wide to let the baby out, right? And so I imagine
there's a lot of oil.
A lot of oil. Yeah. Yes, I've had those kinds of Ayurvedic massages, pouring oil everywhere. My goodness, so much oil. So the oil it helps to tonify the tissues and get everything back.
Yes, so we believe that sesame seed oil is what we use over here at large. And sesame seed oil has got the tendency to help you absorb the necessary vitamin D if you're exposed to a little bit of sunlight, and to get your hormones back together.
Okay, so that would help with a lot of things postpartum. Regular sesame oil massage, just that, absorbing all of that and getting the hormones back into the right rhythm.
Right.
Beautiful. Okay, sounds great. So so I want to ask you, is there anything else about womb-centered healing, and what does that mean? We've been talking about it kind of, but I would love for you to articulate in your feeling, what does womb-centered healing mean, either personally or collectively, or both?
Okay. For me, I am not able to comment about what my clients go through or what they feel, but for me, doing this kind of birth work is my womb-centered healing, I feel. Um, helping people, just being with them, just listening to them, being there for them is what womb-centered healing means to me as a person. So this is just a personal takeaway that I have, about womb-centered healing.
Wow. So it's really for you about this helping relational process of being there for people. It sounds very elegant and simple the way you talk about it. Just that nurturing, being there for people. It's beautiful. I think I feel the same way too.
Maybe that's why the universe made us connect.
That's why. Must be. All right. Well, lovely. So if folks want to get in touch with you and learn more about your work, how can they reach out with you?
Okay, I'm on Facebook, and my name is Neela Sivakumar. It's Neela So that's
Okay.
Neela Sivakumar. And also you can get in touch with me by email, and my email address is NEELA, the Indian Doula, Neela the Indian Doula @gmail.com.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much. And again, I'm Sama Morningstar, and this has been the Womb-Centered Healing podcast as part of the Womb-Centered Healing Temple, an online space where womb-centered healers can come together, be there for each other, and lift each other up. So thank you for joining us today for the Womb-Centered Healing podcast. If you want to learn more about the Womb-Centered Healing Temple, you can come to the website at wombcenteredhealing.com. And I look forward to talking with you again soon. Any last words of wisdom for us today, Neela?
I really thankful for to you for having me over, and to listening to me. I've said a lot of things. I don't know how it's going to make an impact, or how it's going to sound later on to me and to you and to the others who are going to be listening to it. But I really thank you for this opportunity, for hearing me out, and thanks to the universe for bringing us together.
All right, likewise. Thanks to the universe. Okay, that's all for now, folks. Until next time.